you would have told me that I would be filming a YouTube video for my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, I would have betted with you that would never happen. Welcome to my channel. My name is Faven, shortcut for Fave. I am in my late 20s and I live in Europe right now. I was born and raised in Saudi Arabia. I am originally from Africa. As you guys can see, I've got a little color on me. I'm from a country called Eritrea. Here, filming a video and on YouTube, starting a new journey. Never ever filmed a video in my life. I'm nervous and excited at the same time and truly blessed, and I pray that this channel blesses you guys. And yeah, so just to give you guys a little bit of insight of what I'm going to be doing on my channel is I'm going to be speaking of truth, strength, and encouragement to the Lord Jesus through the Lord Jesus Christ and his words, and also adding a little bit of lifestyle, wellness, and just everything to do with health, you know, as I'm also just started a month ago throughout my journey, and which I'm super excited to be sharing with you guys. Yeah, I hope that it blesses you. I hope that it resonates with you, and most importantly, introduces you to Jesus, his love and strength. Born and raised in Saudi Arabia. It is a country in the Middle East. And yeah, I grew up with two siblings, a household with two parents, and we grew up in a Christian household. You know, when it came to our Christianity, it was more so the basics of, you know, who Jesus is, what he done for us. Yeah, that was basically the knowledge that I had of Christ and of God. We had a Bible in our bed, never read it, but it was always there. And yeah, we would pray before our food, you know, the basics, just more so of like seeing God as this God that is in heaven and just judging everybody and looking down, I want to say, and this like wrath of God, basically, not the love of God. That was the household that we live in. In my younger years, I was very shy, very quiet, you know, very much to myself, didn't talk much, don't love being in the spotlight, like absolutely not. So it's kind of odd the fact that I'm making this, but when God calls you and you try to run away from it, you're not getting anywhere. Just take God's word and say to God, okay, you know what? I surrender everything to you, Lord. You do this, you know what I mean? So I was running away from it because I do not like spotlight. I don't like camera. I don't like, you know what I mean? This is very much uncomfortable for me, and I'd rather be somewhere in the corner, maybe behind the scenes, behind the camera, but you know, it's all for the glory of God, and God has a deeper purpose. You will never know the end, but you just have to walk in faith. So yeah, that's just a little bit of me. And yeah, so I was very quiet, very much to myself. And also the biggest thing I want to say, growing up, I never felt like I belonged somewhere. So I always had people around me. Like our house was always my aunties, you know, family members, relatives. It was always filled. And never has there ever been a time where it's only just the four of us, you know, five of us in the household. So there was always people around us. We had such a tight-knit community, a lot of childhood friends that we were literally raised up together, and a very much of a community net. But I never felt like I belonged in that space, no matter where it was, in school or anywhere. Never felt like I belonged somewhere. So, by the way, I am the eldest daughter and I'm an African, so shout out. I don't know what that means, but shout out to you eldest daughters. I see you, you know, aka generational curse breakers. You feel me? So I'm the oldest out of two brothers, and growing up, there was always this push to be was always kind of pushed to be out of my comfort zone. Not in my comfort zone, but to be a person that speaks, or a person that shows like loud and just expressive type of personality. That was never me, you know what I mean? I want to say, growing up, the one thing that was like expressive is that I love to laugh, and I'm always smiling, giggling. I'm just, you might see me now, I'm being a little bit serious, but deep down, I'm a goofy, silly little girl. I can be serious, but deep inside, I love to laugh. But other than that, I was just, you know what I mean, minding my business. I was in my own world, and a lot of people don't like that. And that was the case for me. So that is me throughout my childhood. Like I said, I was born in Saudi Arabia. Just to give you guys a little bit of insight of Saudi Arabia, it's an Islamic state. So the religion is Islam, which basically is person they call him Muslim, for those that don't know. And growing up in it, there was a lot of laws that you had to go through. So basically in school, I never went to school with boys. It was always girls together, and boys were in a different building. So we never mixed matched with the guys. That was that. Women were not allowed to drive cars. Apparently they're allowed to drive car now. Don't know. And when you would walk as a woman outside, you had to have either, you're only allowed to walk with a male present, that is your father, your brother, and that's it. There's an exceptional here and there. Yeah, so very much that type of environment, very, lawful, strict. When I tell people my experience or how I was raised in Saudi Arabia, a lot of people are shocked the fact that was still a Christian and am still a Christian, and how I did not conform to Islam. But there is a lot of Christians there. There is a lot of Christians, Muslims in the West, and they still practice their religion. But the thing is, back in Saudi Arabia, you're not allowed to have churches, at least when I was raised. So we never went to church. You know what I mean? It was we went to church maybe 2-3 times, and that was like in a separate, it's like in a compound where you go. Europeans would live. There's like a compound. They had like a different building. There's like securities and all these things. And there they had like their own schools and their own rules. Whole different environment, I would say there. So that, I want to say we went to church 2 or 3 times. It was mostly on Christmas, Easter, something occasionally. It was very much hidden, and you have to do it in secret, basically. So you can display your religion. Like as a Christian, you're not allowed to wear crosses and talk about Jesus or hold a Bible outside. You wouldn't do that. I don't know how it is now. Pretty sure it's different. But back then, you were very much, it's a secret how you practice your faith, I want to say. Yeah. So that was the environment that I grew up in. But to say all that, as a Christian, or should I say maybe because I was sheltered and I was born there, I actually had one of the greatest childhoods, I want to say. And our parents did the best that they could. We were never lacking. We never went to bed hungry, or we always went to school. So I want to say I'm very much blessed to have had the childhood that I had, and I'm very grateful for it. So I didn't have much of a bad experience or like a horrible experience. There was a lot of things that I did not agree with, or as a believer of Christ. Even though I didn't have a relationship, but I still knew that certain things you're not supposed to be doing, But yeah, growing up, I want to say being the eldest daughter, which I'm going to go in depth probably in another video. I feel like being the oldest in general, there's a lot of expectation. There's a lot of pressure on you being the oldest, being, the example for your siblings, and you're not really much of a child that is, because you're the oldest, you feel like you have a lot of responsibility, you play this parent role. So yeah, there was a lot of trauma. I wouldn't say a lot, but there was trauma that needed to be healed from. And I want to say that came from that, and just not feeling accepted. Growing up, I never felt accepted. And like I said, I never felt like I belonged somewhere. So I always felt like I was an odd person. Not the funny part, but the most, I want to say, the part where it's like it doesn't make sense is because nobody told me you were not a part of us, or you're not supposed to sit with us. Majority of the time people would call me to sit with them and chit chat with them and stuff like that, but I never felt in my heart that I belonged in that place, basically. So after you finish school, like I said, you don't really have an opportunity to go to college, university. I don't know much in depth why that is not a possibility, but a lot of immigrants, they have to either go to another country to, to continue their schoolings or university. So we were very much sheltered. Our parents did not tell us the struggles that they went through, but they went through a lot of struggles raising us and working and all these things. There's a lot of, unjust, the amount of fees that you have to pay for your papers to live there. There's a lot of parents that raise their children in Saudi Arabia. It's not easy at all. And we didn't know this. We were sheltered, we were children enjoying life. And, as a parent, they want us to have the best of life and the best of, opportunities. And so I want to say, I don't want to generalize everybody, but African, especially immigrants, I want to say, they hold education very high regard. So education is literally one of the most important things, or one of those things that they want to provide for their children. And because in their homeland there's either war, there's poverty, there is not much opportunities for them. And because they were stripped away from education and from school and didn't have that opportunity, they want the best opportunities for their children. They're very much strict. I want to say strict, but they want us to have like one of the best schools and best education and be excellent in your school. So that was a very much of an importance to them for their children. We moved from our home that we call our home. I was born and raised there my whole life. Like I said, that's literally been my home, and we don't know other home. We have family and friends and everybody here, school and everything. So the difference in Saudi Arabia and West, or should I say Europe, just the West in itself, is so it's such night and day. The difference is, it's so different. That's all I can say. Is the difference is very much different. The culture, of course, the language, the people, the laws, the system. It's just everything is so different. So if you went from, let's say, America to Germany, let's say, there is a difference, but it's not really much of a difference. It was such a huge shift. Oh my God. We hated it. All of us, me and my two siblings, we hated it. So the first moment when we saw it, we're like, oh, nice, mountains, pretty, all these things. And then we were like, okay, it's been a week. When are we leaving? It was mom and the three of us. And so we were like literally questioning mom every single day, when are we going, and then she said, you know what, we're not going anywhere, we're going to be staying here. We're like, huh, what, staying where? So mind you, we were not told that we're going to come here, and we didn't say bye to our friends, our childhood. So again, that has caused us trauma, just the separation, and now we have to live here. So you can just imagine, the language, there's different language, people and systems and laws and all these things. So we came from our parents doing everything for us and providing for us, doing everything. Now the responsibility is on mom, and especially on me, because my mom does not really speak much of an English. So I was, again, the oldest. A responsibility that has been placed on me. Half of the year was absolutely, I don't want to say hell, but it was half of that. The first year that we were there, it was horrific. It was bad. It was just a huge adjustment to do. You're in a new country, you don't have your family, literally, like nobody, and you don't know the language. So we had to adapt to things very, very quickly. I want to say one of the hardest time in my life. Your girl was put on a huge responsibility, but by the grace of God, I always say this, God is the one that brought me through it, and I am so grateful for that. And it has taught me a lot. So we were able to go to school. I was in the 8th and 9th grade, so I came halfway on the 8th grade and I went to the school. One thing I've noticed in the West, there's a lot of cliques. which I did not like at all. So in one class, there would always be this group, this group, this group. So in my school growing up, there wasn't much of that. You know, I grew up in my school with so many diverse cultures, and there wasn't much of a separation. It was more so like, oh, I love your culture. Like, oh, what do you do in your culture? How do you say this in your culture? Like, what type of food do you eat? And there was a lot of like embracing each other's culture, and there wasn't really much of a like, oh, this person is from this country or this person is from this side and I don't want to talk with this person. There was very much of an embracing of one another. We even used to have, I remember in school, we used to have culture day, make their traditional food and you eat it from there. So yeah, and also that is one of the main reasons why I just love culture. I love traveling. Like, that is literally something that I love to do. Food, you know, different culture food. And also that helped me tremendously to get along with anybody. So if you put me in a room with so many cultures, I feel absolutely comfortable, you know, being around different cultures. I actually love that, you know. So yeah, just to piggyback, I kind of got off track, but what I was trying to say is that in the West, I seen there was a lot of cliques. But when it came to like guys and girls being together, I already knew that that was a norm, because I grew up listening to hip hop, R&B, MTV, Nickelodeon, Disney. So our channels, or the things that we grew up seeing, was very much familiar to a person that lived in the US or in the West. So we weren't really like detached from the West. You know, it was just like the outside of Saudi Arabia. It was a little bit different. All the channels that people from the US or from the West, like I said, listen to. So there wasn't very much of like shock that schools with boys and stuff like that. So when it came to adjusting, it wasn't really hard, you know, to accept, you know, how people live here and stuff like that. It was more so like, you know, not being around the people that you grew up with. The first year of school, when I got there, it was like the worst year ever. And I was always alone. So that was for the first time where I felt very alone. The huge thing that played that role is also the language barrier. So a lot of the people that went to school there, they didn't really know much of an English. So yeah, your girl was alone. So here I am in a new country, adjusting and, you know, trying to learn the language, trying to really get along. Like I said, for the first time, I felt like, okay, nobody likes me, nobody's accepting me, what do I do? So that's when my people pleasing tendency came from, is I would try to be like them, or I would try to laugh at certain jokes that they would make, even though it was slightly shady towards me, which is very, very wild. And I usually would hear them speak in front of me and they would say something shady, but I would never address it and I would just smile, because I was like, you know what, let me just be quiet and just accept the fact that they're talking about me, because I want to have friends and I don't want to feel alone, basically. But the one thing that I did not do was be a different huge person, but it was more so like I would let people slide off with a lot of things and I would not address a lot of things. And also, I'm not very much of a confrontational person. So I was just like, let me just shut my mouth. I already don't have friends, you know, so I'm gonna let them be. With that being said, you know, feeling alone, and I'm like, okay, what do I do with my time? So like I said before, I loved music. I grew up with music, and music played a huge role. And that's also one of my main testimonies, is music, and really breaking off that stronghold that I had with music. But music was the thing that I turned to, and that was my coping mechanism to me coming to a new country, feeling alone. I would listen to music every single day, as in religiously. And also, back in school times, we used to do a lot of like performance, like, you know, dancing and listening to music and stuff like that. So that was also a way that I would express myself. Basically, I leaned on to music. I leaned onto music. I remember I had like a small MP3. I was listening to music every single day without failure and just, live in my own world basically. So yeah, music was the thing that I leaned on. And come to find out later on in life, I was actually idolizing music, which is makes sense, just living in my own world, creating a scenario, and that seed of being in my own world created a fantasy in my head that was like that thing kind of made me live in a false reality basically, because the reality that I was in was not the way that I wanted it. And music was like that, I would say basically a god. So I placed music in the position of God, not knowingly, but I placed it in the position of that. And so music was my coping mechanism when I was sad, when I was happy, when I was down in any sort of way. Music was the thing that helped me escape from that reality and just create my own reality in my head, which was such a huge stronghold for me. Even before I left Saudi Arabia, music played in our household every single time I could ever remember. Music was always a part of us, basically. With your friends, you would always listen to music because we didn't have social media, so music was the thing where you would how can I say, you would relate with a person, or you would feel connection with people is through music. And music was a huge thing back in 2000. It wasn't like now, with social media. Back then there was like MTV was popping, Like I said, music was basically my God, thing that got me through the hard times. Whether it be bad memories or good memories, music played a huge role in my life. With that saying, when I came to Europe, now we were allowed to, display our faith. The fact that we're Christian, I can wear a cross and I can hold a Bible and all. When it came to that, there wasn't very much of a big shift of I am a Christian, all these things. Never really had that realization because I didn't have a relationship with God. Such a blessing, the fact that I can display because I didn't have a relationship with God, With that being said, we would go to church, and we went to an Orthodox church majority of the time. Dad is Pentecostal and my mom was Orthodox, and we didn't really know, our parents really didn't tell us like, oh, I'm Pentecostal, I'm Orthodox. When we came to Europe, that's when it was kind of disclosed. We would go to an Orthodox church, and the reason why you would go to church if you're not in God is because your parent tells you you have to go to church. So that was the reason why I would go to church every Sundays, because your parent tells you to go to church, and it's important to go to church. It was more so of a pressure than really understanding what church really is about. And just to put a disclaimer, this is my own experience and my story when it comes to any church that I have been to. So please don't take this personal and say, oh, but I'm an Orthodox, or I went to Orthodox church, I never felt that way, it wasn't for me. That is absolutely fine, and your experience, but my experience was this, and I can only speak from my experience. So I just want to say that, and this is no hate to any different denomination of Christianity. This is just what I observed and what I experienced. When I used to go to Orthodox church, one thing that I've noticed is the fact that there was a lot of how you dress, how you pray, how you worship, how you praise. There was a lot of like order basically. And if you're like Eritrean, Ethiopian, Orthodox church, you wear white, you cover your head, all these things. So when it comes to that, I actually loved the fact that women veil and you come appropriately. Absolutely no zero issues. My issue with that was they were heavy on checking that every person was wearing appropriately, as in like, and for me, I don't really like to wear, back then I didn't really like to wear dresses, not really my thing. I rather be myself. So I would wear long jeans, and if it was short, it would literally be before my elbows, or longer even than that, covered up. And also Just a little bit of insight. I never was the type to wear any revealing clothing, very modestly, and then I would have like a white scarf, shall I say a veil. I would wear that. That was an issue. And for me, it's like, I didn't understand that. I was like, why is there so much emphasis on how a person is dressed and if they are all the way covered and all these things? It just did not make any sense. It was more so of that than it was really teaching of the Bible. And also another thing is I never felt the presence of God when I would go to these churches. I did not feel it. And there was a lot of that. And also in churches that I went there was a lot of gossiping. They would say like, oh, look at her, what she's wearing, or yesterday I did this and this, literally while the priest is preaching, just gossiping and talking about other than God. And that just gave me such a bad taste of what church is. I was like, what is this, And I was like, this can't be of God. This can't be approved by God, And mind you, I don't have a relationship with God. I don't have the right to be saying these things, but these are the things that I observed. And I was like, I don't want to be in this type of environment. And so that was my experience. And also another thing that happened that made me stop going to church was when I remember one time I went to church. Like I said, I wear my jeans, t-shirt, and actually it was long sleeve. It was winter time, and I had a scarf on my head, just respectfully. And I was sitting in the front, which usually I always sit in the back, but I think my mom and everybody was sitting in the front. I was like, why should I sit in the back on my own? So I sat on the front, and after the sermon and everything was done, I went to greet the priest, and he just looked me up and down, and he was like, what you're wearing is inappropriate. You should not be wearing that. He said something. I can't say verbatim what he said, but he said something about my clothing and what I was wearing. I was like, wow, not even a greeting, nothing. And that was my last time ever going to that church. And I was like, yeah, that's it for me, And so that, not only did it give me a bad representation of church, but it also made me look at God like, is what I'm wearing and how I'm looking way more important than the teachings, or shall I say my heart, or how I am presented, And like I said, even in churches, they would be she's in the choir, basically. Oh, she's in the choir and she's singing. Look at her, she's such a lovely person. So there was more so of like how you look. They were so much invested in how you look, how you're dressing. The only way I can explain to people is if you read, oh my God, forgive me God, Matthew, I believe Matthew and Luke, where Jesus Christ were holding a lot of sermons, a lot of teachings also for against the Pharisees and how they're hypocrites. Literally read that. That is exactly how the way that these priests and people were basically living. Like, it was literally that. And I remember when I was reading my Bible, I was like, oh my God, why is this so familiar? And everything is exactly what I saw. And I was so appalled, because this was the things that God warned the Pharisees and really spoke to them and against their hypocrisy. The outer of a person and what they do, how they eat, how they move, how they dress, all these things were important more than the heart of a person. You have to show up a certain way or else you are not a good Christian. That did not even make me want to know God more. It actually made me strain away from God. So that was that. If somebody asked me, are you a Christian, or like, what is your religion, I would say I'm a Christian. I believe in Jesus Christ. All these things. Zero relationship, nothing else, nothing more to it. A lot of character development became not more so a shy person, but very much also quiet, introverted to myself. I had like a few friends here and there, and I also learned the language very, very quickly, because I didn't have like other people where I can speak English and Arabic, so I was kind of like forced to learn the language, which also helped me a lot to be able to communicate with the people. And so I was introduced to clubbing. My first time ever drinking alcohol was when I was 18, and clubbing, shisha, I would smoke it like here and there, not really that much. So I've tried marijuana. Yeah. First time ever drinking when I was 18, and got introduced to it when I was 18. Yeah, clubbing also around that time. I want to say maybe 16, 17. Yeah, so mind you, my parents never drank. They don't drink. They don't smoke ever. And also a lot of my family household, you don't see a lot of even cigarettes. Few relatives that do smoke and drink. So, and also in Saudi Arabia, alcohol was not allowed. It was illegal basically. Now I'm coming up to 18. At that time you want to try new things. You want to experiment new things. You want to do what other people are doing. So the lifestyle basically. But I want to say the one thing that God has really been, I want to say, looking back, God has really, even though I was not in God, God was convicting me. I'm never the type of person to do things just because other people are doing. I might try it, but I'll never go to an extent just because that person, let's say if somebody gets drunk, I was not the type to be like, okay, let me also get drunk. You know what I mean? I would be like, oh, okay, I will try to drink, but if I don't feel like getting drunk, I'm not gonna get drunk, basically. So yeah. PSA, I've never been drunk in my life. Just to make sure that I say that. When I would drink like one glass of like a cocktail basically. I would go to clubbing here and there. Like I said, I loved music, so that was also a way for me to kind of like listen to music and dance. And I also love to dance, and I'm blessed with the rhythm, so you feel me. But I got into clubbing, dancing, music, and just really being in the world basically. But yeah, it was me. And then I want to say in my 20s, around that time was a time when I was kind of adapting to getting really into the system, kind of finding myself and accepting the country that I'm in, and the language, and really like feeling a little bit more comfortable, I want to say. Even with that, I also never felt like I belonged somewhere. So that is such a huge part that was missing in me, was I never felt like I belonged in any spaces that I was in back then and even now. So that was one thing that was something missing in me, I want to say. Now in my 20s, living a lifestyle, I was never the type to like go excessively. So when I say I go clubbing, I would go clubbing maybe twice a month or so. Even though I was indulging into the world, and when I say that, I was like in the world basically, just listening to music, going to clubbing, drinking here and there. I never was a type to, for example, like just mingling and sleeping with any man and entertaining men. That was never me. The reason why I would go to clubbing was because I just loved music, and I love to dance, and the music is loud there, so it's like, you know what I mean, it's fun. That was my mindset. So I also did not feel loved the way that I wanted to, and because I didn't feel loved, I always had this mindset or this belief that if my own they don't love me, or I don't feel loved, how can anybody else or like an outsider love me? That was my perspective. So I was like, I don't want to be in a relationship because I know that the person is not going to love me. I don't want to like fully open up myself. That was also a thing where I did not fully open up to people, because why would I open up to a person that I know they don't have the good intention? So I always felt like people didn't have the best of intention. I want to say I didn't feel like I opened up to people because I always felt like I'm not gonna be in their life for long. And that came from being separated, from my home, from the place that I grew up in. I was like separated. That trauma where I was like, I don't need to show my real self. I don't need to open up to people because I'm probably not gonna be in their life. So what is the point of even, doing that? Also, just the mindset and the belief that I had getting into my 20s. Of course, you have like, how can I say, feelings, or should I say that part of you that wants to. I did talk to boys. I did have like, you know what I mean, talking here and there and chit chatting, going on dates and stuff, but never something serious. Mid-20s, living this lifestyle. And around 21 till 24, they say that age is where you really are trying to understand what is my purpose, or like you feel like your life is going downhill. You're like, what am I supposed to do? You question a lot of things. You know, you're like what is life? You know what I mean? God is exposing you. For me, God at that time exposed me to my trauma, to a lot of the things that I was really holding in, and there was a lot of baggage that was being revealed to me. And that's when I knew that I had childhood trauma. Until then, I really did not have an understanding I had trauma. In our culture, you don't really talk about traumas, feelings, and all these things. It's very much like non-existent, basically. You know, you're living, you have food, you have clothes, you're going to school. What more do you need? You know, when you did have feelings, or when you did feel something, you suppress that feeling because you feel like, okay, I'm not supposed to have these things. I should be grateful for what I have around me. So that pushing is not a healthy thing, and it's not the right thing to do, because that trauma is always going to be there, and some point it's going to explode, and it's not going to be good. And that was my experience. You know, it blew up, and everything was just exposed. All these things were like really highlighted now. And then also at that time, I was a person that questioned a lot of things. So that time they call it woke. I don't really like using that word because I feel like it's so overused. But I think like Black Lives Matter, slavery, and you know how the system is set up, and how, you know, our food and our drinks and all these things, you know, there's pollution, there's, you know, darkness and world wokeness, not really godly wokeness, if you know what I mean. So this time, have no zero relationship with God. I would post Bible verses. I would read my Bible here and there, but didn't really have a relationship with God. So yeah, I always had a Bible though. I always wore a cross though. So I always told that I was a Christian, but that's about it basically. Yeah, so God revealing my trauma to me, and just, you know, being woke and like feeling like, oh my God, I'm out of the matrix and I know so much about this and all these things. I was the type of person that I just wanted to know the truth. I was always a person that strived to know the truth. I never was, like I said, when you are a person that wants to expose, or should I say, want to know the truth, you don't really have a lot of people behind you. You know, a lot of people want to still live their lifestyle. They don't want to, you know, challenge their thinking. I was the opposite. I always wanted to challenge. I always wanted to know the truth. But I was seeking truth from the world, which is a very dangerous way of falling into the trap of the enemy. So I was very much naive. A lot of the things were true, you know, the things that I would post on Instagram and say all these things. That was majority of things that I would post, by the way. You know, the only time that I did post a picture of me is when I would go on vacation, or if I have a celebrating something, which was like once or twice a year. Other than that, my posting was about exposing people, being woke, and just wokeness, all that stuff. Still not feeling like I fit in anything, but I just knew, okay, this is the right step. That was my thought process. I was like, okay, I cracked the code. Music was the thing, like I said, where I felt like I had something, you know. Music was that thing where literally if I left my AirPods or my headphones at home and I have work, I would really have to go back and get my headphones, because there's no way I am going any place without listening to my music. It's not happening. Like, there's no way. So that was like my God. Like, I held it so highly, but at that time I didn't see it as that. But that's basically what I was doing with my action. I was coping with that, you know. I say like, music helped me with this, music helped me with that, and all these things. I love music till this day, but it's just like a different genre now. It's mostly gospel, you know, and very old school music, or like jazz, those type of music, jazz, you know, Cuban Afro music that have clean and good lyrics. I don't think music is wrong. It's the type of music that we listen to. I don't know when TikTok started, but that was the time when I actually got into New Age. This was in the beginning, not really beginning, maybe a year after TikTok was released. I made an account. The first video I ever saw was this woman. She had like flowers and very radiant, smiling, and just had this energy about her that I was so appealed by. I saw the video and I was like, and she was talking about how you're your own goddess, God, you should be living your life how you want to. Basically saying that I am this wonderful, amazing person, the universe, and all these things of New Age. I did not know that this was a New Age. Zero idea that this was New Age. Like zero, nada, like nothing. And funny enough, it wasn't mentioned in these videos that this was a New Age practice, which is another tactic. Fun fact, not fun fact, but a fact about the enemy is that the enemy, when he is introducing you to something false religion, to a false practice, he is going to not tell you the full truth of what you are indulging in, right? He's gonna allure you in these the same way, a vibrant person, they're smiling, they're nice, they're saying good words, they're not profane, like there's no profanity in their words. That's how the enemy introduces us. He needs to allure us. So he's not gonna say to us, oh, this is demonic, this is my scheme, this is my plan to get you off track, to get you away from God even more. No, he's gonna use things that you are struggling with, or in a space or in a season that you're in where you're trying to find truth, but you're going to the lies. So he's gonna have to set it up like it is the truth, like you discovered something, And that was the experience that I had. I had zero idea that was New Age, and if I knew that it was a practice, I would have absolutely not got into it. But again, like I said, the enemy is going to use something to hide the truth from you, and then once you're in it, that's when showing you that this is of him, and at that point you already been too deep into it. So before I got into TikTok, I was watching a lot of tarot card readings, and tarot card reading. Oh my god, I remember like almost 3 to 4 months I was heavy on it. I also got into zodiac signs. Zodiac signs, tarot card reading was my thing. When I say I watched every single day, that was the thing that I would come home and I'm like excited, and I'm like, oh my god, I can't wait to hear this new thing. And the funny thing that made me really continue on is because they were so accurate. Like, even with the zodiac sign, it was so accurate that I was like, this has to be the truth. How can they lie? How can they know all these things? It was so precise and so like to the point, where I was like, whoa, like how do they know all of this about me? So zodiac sign, it was around 2014, I want to say, around that time when I really got into it. Like, I'm talking about, I was putting my friends on, I was telling people about it, and showing them how to search up. And then asked my mom what time I was legitimately born, for me to write my, what was it called, like the moon sign, something like that. And again, I did not have practices. I didn't do rituals. I didn't do worshiping of any kind. I was just like, read something about zodiac sign, I would do that and all these things. So to tarot card reading, and then after 6 months I stopped. Like, something came where I was like, this is wrong, you know what I mean, this is so wrong, and I just stopped watching it. And the one thing that God has really done for me is that when I know something is not right, I drop it. Like, I don't even think about it, I didn't have like, oh my god, the urge to go back to it and I need to listen to it. I never had that. I remember, oh my god, I'm going on a tangent, but I remember when I was smoking shisha, one of my classmates, we were playing basketball. So we were playing basketball, and the guy that was in my team, he smoked like, has in like a whole pack in 2 days or so. Usually when you're playing basketball, there's like don't quote me on this, but 5 people are on the court, and then off court there's other teammates. So we always had to be in rotation basically. He was sitting in like beside me, legitimately coughing, and he was getting tired, and he had like a napkin, and he was closing his mouth, and he was coughing, and I was like, why does he have a napkin when he's coughing? I didn't understand it. He had a napkin and he was coughing, and I was just asking myself this question. I was like, why does he have a napkin? And he removed the napkin. I kid you not, it was black tart, has in pieces, black stuff coming out of his mouth. When I tell you I had the biggest shock of my life, I had the biggest shock. I looked at him and I looked back at I looked at him, I looked back. I was in shock. Like, I had my mouth was wide open. I was like, there is no way that he is fine. I was like, do you need to go to the doctor? Like, this is something serious. And he was like, oh no, this is something that happens often. I said, pardon? I was in utter shock. I was like thinking about it the whole day. I could not rest. There is no way. He was like, oh yeah, that's not a problem. I was like, that does not make you stop smoking cigarette. I don't know what will. Like, I was going at him, and I was like, you need to stop. Like, this is unhealthy. When I saw that, I never, ever, ever in my life put any smoking devices or smoking things. Like, that literally was the last time that I've ever smoked shisha. So at that time, I got into spirituality. So basically, I believed that there was a God, but I doubted Jesus Christ, which is so insane. I doubted Jesus Christ, and I was like, I believe that there is God. I don't know about Jesus Christ though. Your girl was spiritual, and I remember I posted a picture saying, I'm not religion, I am a spiritual person. I'm free of that. I never did yoga. I never had sage. I never had all these things. I was like very hesitant about it, you know. And I didn't have knowledge about that, and I didn't have that much money to buy all these things, so I was not really indulging into that. But I was listening to these people that were, you know, practicing this spirituality thing. Like I said, back to music, I loved Jhené Aiko. Like, she has this calm and this like innocent, quiet, shy. As you know, she practices new age or spirituality. She made an album with sounds of, I don't know, calming sounds, bowl sounds that they do, and meditating. So I got into meditating, and I tried meditating. So basically in meditation, that I was really finding hard is that you need to not think about anything and have your mind blank. Basically the opposite of what God tells us. Crazy. Counterfeit. That's what the enemy does. And I used to be so frustrated because I could not stop my mind from thinking. You know what I mean? And I was an excessive overthinker, so I was like, why is this not working? But I would still do it. And it was very like, oh, it's so calming, so nice. Into that, I want to say for a few months. And the thing that happened in my life, I want to say around that time, was I was very down. I was very down. I felt like I had such a dark cloud, like just around my head. It was just like, I can't even explain it truly, but I felt very down. I wasn't suicidal, praise the Lord. I don't know if I was depressed. I don't like to use words like that, but I think, I don't know. I was just down. I don't know how to explain it. I wasn't like too much like, I don't want to be around people, but I was very down. If you don't know me, I am very of a positive person. Just like even without me coming to God, I had this very smiling, I'm always laughing, and I always have a positive outlook in no matter what situation is, or I try to. So I definitely had an evil spirit around me, I want to say, now that I'm realizing. I remember there has been 2 situations basically where I almost got hit twice, and it happened on the 3rd time. So the first time it happened, I was in school. I was walking the other side. There's a building here, so I was walking the other side. I was walking. Usually I look left and right. At this time, I don't know what it was. I was so, like, I was physically here, but my conscious mind or my state was, it was like it was blocked, or kind of like, I want to say removed basically. So I was like, dang, like what is happening to me, you know? Like what's going on? I at that time I didn't question it, but when incident would happen, I would say like, what is really going on with me, you know? I was walking the street and this car literally like flew like right there. And I was like, I was a little startled, but I continue on like nothing happened. I was so, I don't know how to explain it, but I was detached from my reality basically. And another incident also happened where we were at the pool. It was summertime. We were at the pool. We were coming out into the parking lot. And a car was passing by, and my friend literally had to pull me back, and it was like, oh my god, are you not seeing that there's a car in front of you? Like it almost hit you. Oh, I didn't see it. Oh, thank you. And I literally continued on like nothing happened. That was like a thing. Things were happening, but I was so like, all I can say is I was not myself. I felt like something was over me. So this happened in the span of, I want to say, a year. I've always been a cautious person. When it came to, you know, watching out for the cars, or when you're crossing the street, you know, looking left and right, that's something that I did. I was even the person that says like, oh, like watch out, like I'm looking out for other people. So I was not being myself. And then after a year after that, I actually got hit by a car. So my mom went grocery shopping and she had a lot of loads, and she was like, come help me. Kind of running late. And I had my phone and I had AirPods basically. And they always come with the bus and they're dropped off. So I was like, oh my god, I'm gonna be late. And I was running a little bit. Like I was running, and there was the zebra cross. I was, you know, running a little bit there. I kid you not, I did not see no car. I know I looked. I did not see no car. I didn't see nothing. Zebra cross here, and then there's like a split basically, and then there's a zebra cross, and then there's the bus station. And I was running. I ran on the second part where the car comes this way. The car hits me. And I fell. Like I got on top of the car, and then I fell on my back, and I had my hands like that. So I felt like I basically rolled on the top of the car, and then I felt on my back basically. I've never been in an accident in my life. I got hit, and I remember just sitting there and then being like, that really just happened. I was so in shock. I was like, whoa, like what, like did that really happen? And I remember sitting there and just being like trying to get myself together, and I was like, oh my god, like what happened? And then I also something happened to my ankle where it I think it kind of not twisted, but something happened. I got hit on my ankle. I think the car, when it hit me, it hit my ankle or something. But I remember like getting up, I had a little bit of bruise on my hand, and then I got up and I walked off, and I was like hopping on one leg. And then I went to my mom, and I remember I was like, I got hit by a car. And mom was like, what? I got hit by a car. And she was like, are you okay and stuff? And I was like, yeah, I'm fine. I'm just trying to process everything that happened. I was like, there's no way that a car just hit me. Like, where did that car come from? And the guy drove off, and we crossed the zebra cross back to, where I came from. And the guy came, and he was like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. Nice gentleman. And I was like, oh, it's okay. Like, it's fine. I'm not hurt. I'm just thinking the whole time. I was like, did that really just happen? What just happened? How did it happen? I did not see no car. What is going on? I did not see that as an accident, as in like something major could have happened, because I did not really get hurt. I did not see it as like this big thing, but it was a shocking incident in my life. But it was just like I got hit by a car a little bit, and nothing really major happened. So for me, at that state, I was like, if I got really hit and something did happen, break a bone or something, then it would be an accident, which is kind of stupid. Went about my day, did not think that it was God that was legitimately waking me up, or shall I say the enemy planning to take me out, and God stop it from happening. Just a side note, sometimes when we think about the things that God, or the situation, the circumstances that God has brought us out of, we sometimes just downplay what God did for us, you know. That was me, you know. The enemy really tricked me into thinking this is not an accident, like nothing happened, but this was God saving me from death. Do you get what I'm saying? Because people die literally tripping off of stairs. People die by being hit by a car, you know? And so for me not to see it as I could have died at that moment and God saved me was the enemy's another way of letting me see how much God loves me and how much God wants to keep me and wants me to see his mercy and grace upon my life, you know. So, and let me tell you something, I still did not believe that that was an accident until I had an encounter with the Holy Spirit, I want to say, and I was reminded this happened like 2 weeks ago, I want to say. I was worshiping and praising God. I was like, you know, I was jumping a little bit. Y'all know the song Praise by Brandon and Chandler, I think. I love that song, and I was praising, worshiping, and just like in the moment, really, you know, thinking of God and his greatness in my life. My ankle hurt, it the same ankle that I got hit by. And instantly God told me, I saved you from death. Do you remember that accident? I saved you from death. And I bawled, like I started crying, because until that moment I did not believe that that was an accident. I did not believe that God saved me from death. I looked at it like I downplayed it, you know, like a veil on me, veil on the goodness of God, of so many, you know, scenarios and out of so many circumstances and plans of the enemy that God saved me from. And I just started to cry. I started to cry and just thank God. And really, I looked back at that moment. I looked back at my life and what I was doing. And I was like, wow, that was really God. You know, God did really save me, you know. I believe that I have some type of power that, oh, you know, I'm lucky and there is no God. There is no God in that accident, you know. But I just got on my knees and I just started crying and just thanking God of how much he has brought me. And yeah, that was an experience in itself. And then funny enough, the next day I was on TikTok. I promise you, and I'm not lying, God knows I'm not lying, I went on TikTok literally the next day. A girl dies from crossing the street, a zebra cross, and she got hit by a car and she passed away. I literally was like, okay. I was like, that's the Holy Spirit again confirming to me, God confirming to me that he saved me. He had favor and grace upon me. And I was just so like, again, I was so emotional, and I was like, whoa, like this is real, you know, on the same scenario that I was in, but God saved my life. And I was so full with God. Like looking back at that, God is so good. And I just want to say, you know, just take a moment to look back at your life where the enemy has told you, oh, no, that was not God. You know, that was just you lucky, you know, something happened with that person. There is nothing that goes without God's hand on it or God's saying on it, you know. There is nothing that the enemy can do without God allowing it. There's nothing any little things that happens in your life without God knowing of that, or allowing, not even knowing, allowing it to happen. So always be reminded of that. Ask God to reveal the accidents or the plans of the enemy that did not prevail, because God interfered in your life and had favor on you, had grace and mercy on you. Don't let the enemy stop you from giving all the glory to God. You know, he deserves all the glory, and he does above and beyond for us. And these are the things that we see. We can only imagine the things that God did not even allow it to happen, because he loves us that much. You know, there's a lot of things that, let's say for instance, God says no to a thing, or he says, oh, you can't do this, or you can't do that. And we think like, oh, but why? I thought this, but What if God is saving you from something? What if God, and it's not even if, it is, God's no is a protection for you. God's like, don't do that. God sees something that you cannot see because he is God, right? He is the creator. We don't have the eyes of God. We don't have, the thinking of the ways of God. For God says that his ways is way higher. His thoughts are way higher than us. So we should move with obedience and knowing, okay, whatever God is telling me to go this place or not to go to this situation or to do certain things differently is because there is a bigger reasoning and there is a better blessing or a better thing for us that God has for us. Like I said, I was into Janae Aiko and all this music, and I started meditating, and one day I was on YouTube. And another thing is, when I was with God, like when I was first starting to really, be in God, reading my Bible and trying to hear the word of God or trying to hear God's voice, I always used to think it was like a audible voice of God. I never looked at God speaking to me through like social media or like to a person. I always thought like, okay, I need to hear an audible voice for me to know that it is God, So I was struggling heavy. And when I look back, this was also a way that God was speaking to me is by, social media. So I was on YouTube, saw this video, and it was by this guy, and he titled how I almost let demons get into me by meditating or something like that. And he was basically explaining how he was meditating. And in the meditating world, there's like these chakras, how you have to line up your heart chakra, your something like that. And there's like a whole ritual that you have to do for you to experience some type of like awakening. And this guy was basically explaining how he was in this meditative state, and he literally felt like demons were getting into him. God was revealing to me what the things I was getting into. And I was like, but I meditate, I've never felt it. And then he was explaining how you have to do like a whole ritual. It's not really meditating. Yeah, so the guy was explaining everything, and I was just like thinking of all the things, and I was like, whoa, this is serious. And the thing with me is that you ain't gotta tell me twice, right? And I was like, yeah, I'm never meditating ever again. I'm gonna stop it. And I felt such a conviction. And then on bottom of that, so mind you, till this now, I don't know that this is new age practice. I just know that, people do this, and they're, spiritual people, and they know higher powers and all these things. So basically being naive. And then literally the video after that was how I escaped new age, or why I left new age. And I was like, new age, what is that? Literally explaining everything that I was in. Everything was rolling. Everything that I was doing, everything that I was practicing is anymore. So I stopped everything. I stopped zodiac signs. I left it all. Once I removed it, I never looked back. Again, because I found out it was new age, I thought it was like this godly spiritual thing. There was no harm to it because it wasn't a religion. There was no name to it, and there's nothing wrong with like practicing these things. That's what I was thinking. And I thought like the zodiac sign, all these things were just like practices that you just do. I never thought that it was like a one thing of new age. And so when I knew that, I was like, oh my God, I'm never ever gonna do this ever again. I stopped doing that, but I was still listening to music, listening to music and just still living my lifestyle. And I was in the world, but I was not fully of the world. If you get what I'm saying. Like I wasn't really like partying every time, drinking. And then in my mid-20s, 2020, was it 2020, 2021, when the pandemic hit, it was one of the most life changing and a turnaround for me. Because when that happened, it gave me time to myself and really evaluate. And just God really taking the time to show me certain things that I was indulging in. And really, I had a lot of time to myself like everybody else. And honestly, I was super excited the first 6 months. I was like, yes, I'm not going to be around people. I can be home. I was I was enjoying it, not believing everything, questioned a lot of the things that they were like saying, oh, you need to do this, you need to do that. I was just happy to be home and just not be bothered. And I also was working. That job was very tough, so I was very grateful that I didn't have to, work, and I can just chill and stuff. So we still had to do schoolwork, but I was not working for the half of the year. I want to say also a year. So time went by so fast, and I also was dreading. When I say dreading, that it was a 3-year partnership. I was like dreading it. I was like, God, please remove me off of this. Like, I don't want this. And I guess that's the way God answered my prayer. I don't want to say that, but I started to read book. I was reading Bible here and there. Again, still not having really a relationship with God. And discovering myself, really getting to know. I felt very lost when I was about 24, 25. It's like, what am I supposed to do? What is my purpose in life? Like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do. Like, I don't know what my purpose is. And just to give you a backstory, before I got to hospitality, I tried so many jobs, like so many different jobs in different areas, offices, medical, and what else did I tried with children. I'm just gonna do something and just get it over with, and at least I have a diploma at the end, and after that I might find something that I love to do. But at this time, I hate everything that I'm doing. I woke, and then the whole pandemic thingy was like, oh, a lot of things happened. Honestly, I didn't take the V. I'm gonna say that. I'm gonna speak in code. I didn't take the V, and I was like, I'm not taking it. This not happening. I was like, I'm not taking it. So I want to say, I don't know when it was. 2021 is when they opened up, and they were like, take the V for you to be able to go to restaurants and all these things. It was a whole thing. And at my job, it was like 6 months before the pandemic stopped. He was firing people because they were not getting the V. Your girl was like thinking, I was like, oh yeah, he can fire me. But I was still stern and very firm. I fired one person, and he was actually speaking to one of my coworker, and he was telling her how she needs to get the V. If she doesn't get it, she's not gonna be able to work, and she's gonna be fired basically. So a week or so after that, I'm gonna say COV. I got COV, and I was like, yes, because if you have it, you get a certificate that for 1 year you're able to go to restaurants. It's basically like the V. So if you had the COV, this is such a bad name, that you were basically like a person that had the V. You know what I mean? I don't have to get it. This is God, literally, like, that was God right there. That was God, because I was like, I'm not getting it. I'm getting fired. It's okay. Yeah. And then also my little brother got it. At that time, even in the church, they were telling people they need to have a certificate for them to get into church and stuff. And he was actually contemplating on getting it. And I was like, you're not getting it. We're not getting it. It's not happening. And I had zero knowledge, but I was like, I'm not getting it. I don't need it, basically. And he got it too. So both of us got it on the same time together. We went there, we got the test. We had to be at home for 10 days or so. And then I had the certificate, and it lasted me a year. And literally after that, 7 months after I, had the certificate, COV was not a topic anymore. So also God coming through for me, and really, having his hand on me and having his hand on, our family. There was a lot of division. People are so quick to believing certain things, and they're very quick to not questioning and asking, okay, but how, why, where, do I really need this? Do we really need to do this? Do we need to act like this way? You're not gonna force your ways on me. That's not happening. At that time, I'm home to myself. I was like, what is my purpose? Still having no idea, zero idea. Almost about to finish my partnership, and then after the pandemic was over, I didn't want to go clubbing. I don't want to ever drink. I don't want to ever be around those type of scenarios. So I was like, I'm never going back. People would ask me like, oh, do you want to come to the club? And at that time, you had to wait in line, as in like a huge line, just to get the test. They had to wait there for 2 hours to get the test and get in the club. I was like, there's absolutely no way. But literally everybody was doing it. And I was kind of like asking myself, am I too harsh on myself? Like, am I too like, thinking that I really know it and I really don't know it, and I'm not really enjoying my time on this earth? When something is in you, even when you try to suppress it, it is very hard to, because you have this, God has given you this, as much as I wasn't in God, God gave me a different perspective, or should I say a different understanding than the people around me. I was not very easily conforming to things. I wasn't the type to like obey certain things and just go with the flow. I had that, which makes you very lonely. You don't have a lot of people that are in that, in that same mindset. So I thank God for that, because that literally, God saved me from a lot of things that if I did not get those convictions, God did not really bless me with that ability, I don't know where I would be. You know what I mean? I would have way worse testimony, I would say. Not even testimony, but a way worse circumstance. I stopped going to the club. I remember after the pandemic, I went for the first time, and literally after 30 minutes, I was like, I need to get out of here. I don't want to be here. Please take me out. Like, I don't want to be here. When God reveals something about the world, or about something, or a person, or something that you were indulged in, it is very hard to go back to it and not have the same lens that God gave you. That's the Holy Spirit speaking through me. When I went to the club for the first time, because I'm an observing person, but I had a different look at it. It's been about years ever since I've been back. And I just looked back, and I was looking at those people, not that I'm better than them, but just observing, the surrounding of mine. And when I would look at these people, I saw a different side. I saw like people that were depressed, that were really not happy, really not enjoying themselves, drunk, substance abuse, and some of them are fighting, some of them are like chasing after girls, groping after girls. And when I saw that, I could not go back to it. That environment was so like polluted. It was so not of God. It gave me for the first time, I felt a darkness, like something hovering over this place, that I did not be around this type of environment. And I just felt like, oh my God, like, what am I doing here, And ever since that day, never went to the club, like ever. God has blessed me with is that if I get an insight about something and God is really speaking through me, like I would drop it like it's a bad habit, like literally drop it, not even think about it. It's that simple. I remember those times I was being exposed and things were being revealed. I still did not have a relationship with God, and things were happening. God was revealing a lot about myself and a lot of things that were happening around me, the things that I was indulging in, or the things that I allowed to happen in my life. And yeah, it's just like once God reveals himself to you, God reveals the darkness and the light, the world that we live in, the lie that I lived in, there is no going back. Even if you try to go back, you're still gonna get that conviction. You can't unsee what God has shown you. To give you guys an insight, I was the biggest Chris Brown fan. Since I was 12 years old till last year, I was the hugest Chris Brown, as in Tim Breezy for life. That was me. I was the biggest fan of Chris Brown. And if you know Chris Brown's music, very sexualized, like extremely sexualized, extremely explicit, and just like wild, And it's so funny when you're in the world, you would listen, like, for example, when you used to listen to certain music, now that I listen back to it, I was like, how did I miss this lyric? How did I miss this part that is so demonic and so wrong, And all of hip hop and R&B music is literally sexualized, violence, or talking about drugs, women, just all demonic stuff, But because you grew up with this, you feel like, oh, it's just, I used to be that type of person. I was like, I love the beat, I love the song, I love the this, da 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 da. But no, you know what I mean? That's another tactic of the enemy deceiving us, you know? I'm talking about biggest fan of Chris Brown. Team Breezy for life, that was the thing for me. I remember when I stopped listening to his music and I was like, let me hear this song. I could not listen to it. I was like, how did I listen to these type of music? Like, how? You know? Because it's so like vulgar and just, it was, yeah. Once you come to God, you're trying to go back, it's so hard. You know? Spirit of God is life, you know, it's everything holy, righteous, and the darkness cannot dwell in it, you know? Darkness has no space in light. The light overshines the darkness. So for you to live in that darkness, you have to remove that light out of you. Heavy on music. And then God was revealing a lot. I used to listen to Beyonce too. I used to be such a huge fan of Beyonce. Her music, I was listening to her music and I stopped listening to her. Listening to one of her songs, Black King, something like that. There was a song. She was talking about Ushun and the sun and rituals, something like that. That ain't that's not my God. Again, still lukewarm. I had no relationship, but I knew like, okay, this is demonic, right? So I stopped listening to Beyonce, dropped it off like nothing. I slowly stopped listening to Jay-Z, Lil Wayne. I used to be the biggest fan of Jay-Z. There's also another thing. I used to be a heavy rap music listener and a fan. Like, I used to love J. Cole. Jay-Z was my number one. Lil Wayne, Method Man, Tupac, Kendrick. What else? 50 Cent. All these artists, literally dropping them slowly by slowly. It was just like when I got revealed to Beyonce, and I was like these lyrics that I missed. And also there was another song of her, Lemonade. I used to love that song. And I missed the first part of her video. If you hear her first ever video, she's talking about how she uses the pages of the Bible to wipe off her, what is it called? Her blood, her period blood. I was appalled. And because of that, I was appalled. Because of that, I was in shock when I was like, how did I listen and miss this point? Or even the Jay-Z song New York. It's about how life starts when the church ends, something like that. This is just crazy. And I went back to my playlist. I had thousands of music. I'm telling you guys, I was music addict, basically my God. Any genre of music you want, I have it on my playlist, literally. Also, another thing, I was such a huge music fan. People would be like, oh, like, why don't you be the DJ? Like, if I would go birthday parties and stuff, they would always tell me, like, be the DJ. And I would be, like, happily, like, do it, you know. Slowly by slowly, everybody got dropped. And I remember I was like, okay, I'm going to stop listening to Chris Brown. Was one of those artists where I was, like, having a hard time to let go of. Literally. Music was one of the hardest things. When I say I was dropping off, it took me a minute. I was like, oh my God, I love this song. Oh my God, I have memory with the song. There's such an amazing memory with this. I got through this type of life. I got through this moment in my life through this music. This music has this. So I attached my memory with music. That's how powerful music is, you know. We know that, you know, Lucifer or Satan was a musician. He was one of the greatest, what is it called? A singer? I don't know if he was a singer, but he was one of those angels that, you know, music was a part of him. So music had such a huge stronghold on me. So it was hard. It was so difficult. It was not easy. When I say dropped, it was not easy. For 2023 was a time where I stopped listening to Chris Brown. I was like, I'm not listening to Chris Brown anymore. I could not, you know. So at this time, I was slowly getting into God. But again, I did not read my Bible. I was not in my word. I knew some verses. I prayed here and there. I would be like so on fire for God, and then after a week it would just go away and I would just be back into my normal life. Or I would pray but still listen to certain musics, circular musics. It was just like very much basically lukewarm. So yeah, so 2023, stopped listening to music, Chris Brown's music, and because of his latest album 1111 and one of his music video, and I was like, oh, but I love Chris Brown. I was going like back and forth, you know. And then I saw the music video and his album, and I was like, yeah, I'm not listening to it. I'm not listening to it. There's absolutely no way. I just felt such a dark presence, and I was like, this is not of God. This is not something God would approve of me to listen to. So I just had to. I just had to. But my heart was broken. Yeah. It was like that 12, 13 years old girl just holding on to this false idol, you know, thinking that this is the thing that got me through life, got me through a different situation. It's like, it's God who gets you through it, you know. But the enemy, he just wants to blind you from the presence of God. So I stopped listening to his music, and literally, it was in January also, literally before I stopped listening to music, I still had him on Instagram. And then 2024, I think, was his tour. And mind you, before that, he did a Euro tour in 2016. And I used to always bet, like, I used to always say, like, oh my God, like, I wish he would come. Like, I wish he would do, like, another tour. And, you know, I went to his concert one time. I was like, I want to go again. 2024, he announced a tour, even before that, literally. And I was like, there is no way. There is no way. And you know how the Bible says you have to move in faith, and you have to renounce and deny yourself and walk with God. And you know how the enemy, and also they were talking about spiritual warfare, and how the enemy will tempt you with certain things. That was literally what was happening. And I remember I saw an announcement of his tour. I went to his website and I checked after like 2 hours, 3 hours. And the reason why I'm saying this is because I remember when I first got to his concert, it was the second day, and the tickets were literally, only 2 tickets were left. Literally 2 tickets, because I had school or something, I couldn't get it. 2 tickets were left. So I was, you know, God allowed me to go there, which he wouldn't take me there, but you know, it happened. But now, I remember a week, like 2 3 days, I went to his website just to check and to know that it's the enemy tactic. I went to his website to check the tickets. There's legitimately tickets there, as in like all like the VIP, the golden tickets, all these things. All of the tickets were not sold out, and I was like, how is that? Because his tickets get sold out like quickly, and I was like, yep, that is the enemy trying to give me a gateway. He's making a way for me to conform and go back to my old life. I'm not gonna lie, I had a moment. I'm not gonna lie, I had a moment where I was like, should I go? You know, this one last time. But I just couldn't do it. I could not do it. The conviction was so hard, and so I did not go, and I'm so glad I did not go. That was the beginning era of really coming closer and closer to God. I was listening to music here and there, but I deleted a lot of artists, And so at this time I was working. It was like God was slowly bringing me closer to him. And then in 2024, I lost my grandmother, and before last year, 2023, 2022, I lost my grandfather. Both of my grandparents they play such a huge role, and their death was very, very heavy on me. I remember he died like a month before I graduated and got my diploma, and it was very heavy because my grandfather really, how can I say, his words were very encouraging. You know, both of them, their words were very encouraging, very loving. I feel like that's every grandparent, but it helped me a lot. And I feel as if though God, you know, he puts certain people in your life or gives you encouragement through people, you know. And that's the beautiful thing about God, is that, you know, we think that God has to come down and, you know, say that he loves us and how much he wants us to grow and stuff. No, he gives us people. He brings us people and the moment where we're down, where they encourage us, whether it be a stranger, whether it be some family member or anybody, where you feel such a presence of God. And that was with my grandparents, because I remember at the time I was really contemplating on quitting, and I was just done, And when I was almost finishing, I had a burnout. Really, I've never had a burnout in my life. I had a burnout because I was overworking, and God kept me going. And I'm so grateful for God, and He deserves all the glory. And everything that I do, I want to do it for Him. When I first came to Europe, like I said, I felt very alone. I was very down, and there was a time where I was down. And I remember we were searching for an apartment, and I was sitting at the bench, and my mom was just walking around on the phone, and we were waiting for the guy to show us around into the building. So I was sitting, and these girls, a group of girls, like I want to say from the age of 4, 5, around that, they came, and they were like smiling and laughing. They came towards me, and I was like, what's going on, If I had my phone, I would be on my phone and I would not even notice them. But at that time, I didn't have a phone, so I was like looking around and just seeing the scenery. And they came up to me and they were like, we just wanted to tell you that you're so pretty and so beautiful, and I love your, and she said, like, I like your, I had like a bow thingy, like a headband basically. I love your headband. And I was like, wow, like, thank you, And the other girls were like, yeah, like, you're so pretty and you're so beautiful. I was kind of like, whoa, like, this has never happened to me, what is this? I didn't think of God at all, nothing. But I remember like, that made my week, just them being acknowledged and being called beautiful, that meant so much to me. God is so good. Like, I can't even, the amount of gratitude and love that I have for God, and the drive that I have, is because of how good God is. And when I looked back at that moment, I was like, that was God, because that never ever happened to me before that, or even after that. So I knew that was God. And the girls literally left after that. I've never seen them again. They left after that. But it made my day, it's simple as that. And we forget that that is God, coming through for us and being there for us at our hardest, most depressing and down moments, He says in His word that He's closest to the broken hearts, In 24, I lost my grandmother, which was very heavy. And then at my workplace, my boss was changing a lot, and there was a lot of things happening, and I just felt very uncomfortable, and very like in a spirit that was kind of like, it did not sit right with me, the things that were happening. And I quit my job, not to know that that was God. And then also on top of that, what was I gonna say? Yeah, on top of that, I was indulging into like business. So I was looking into social media business and just trying everything, because I was done with working this work, because I hated it, And it felt like I knew that it was not for me, I was not meant to do this. I was meant to do something higher. And I need to find another job that is gonna be better than this. So I was like, I want to do my own business. I was indulging into other things. So I was doing business without God, basically trying anything and everything. And if you're not doing it with God, it's so many business ideas. It's actually wild. Like, it's crazy how much business ideas that there is in this world, in this time. It's absolutely, like, it's overwhelming, it's like thousands of business ideas. So I was trying everything. It did not work, failed. I even put money into it. I put my time and effort. It did not work. So I was like, you know what? Giving up. I'm done with it. I quit my job. I was still working. So yeah, that happened. I quit my job. I was down. I was like, I put money, as in like 400 or 500, into this business, and it was not working, not even a little bit. Other people were flourishing, and I was like, why can I not flourish? Like, am I meant to be blessed in financial. Am I not meant to live the life that I want to live, you know? I'm around the mid of July, I was reading my Bible every single day and really getting closer to God, and God really revealed to me. A lot of things happened where I felt the presence of God and God telling me the things that I need to do. And so I did a fast for 3 days. I did a fast and it changed my life. It changed my life completely. I did a 3-day fast just to get closer with God and really, hear the voice of God and be directed, because I felt lost. I was like, I don't know what to do. I need God. I need God. So I am praying. I'm praying to God. I am reading my Bible. I'm trying to seek God. And God shows up, and the way that he shows up is he has me in isolation. I got into fasting for 3 days, and a lot of things got exposed in my life about people, about certain stuff that I never knew, and God just came through. God came through for me, and I remember one moment where I was crying to God, like I was weeping. And at this time, my family were out in vacation, so mind you, I took 2 weeks vacation. I love to travel, so I made a promise to myself that every year at least one time I'm gonna go on a holiday, basically. So I had to turn it off. Everything. And I went into isolation. I was home, I'm gonna say, for 2 weeks or so by myself. I remember one moment I was crying, I was weeping, I was singing the song Agnes Day. I was on my knees and I was just praying. I was renouncing from all things that I agreed with, from all demonic things the music I listened to, the lies that I told, the lifestyle that I was living, and every sin that I can think of, I was just confessing. Every sin that I can think of, I was confessing it to the Lord and just asking God. And I remember I was like weeping, like crying, like to the point, those cries where your head is hurting. And at that moment, my heart got restored. I can't explain it, but I felt like my heart was renewed. Looked back at a moment where my heart was broken. God did the opposite, and I was so overwhelmed, And God, at that moment, like I legitimately felt like my heart was renewed, like my heart got fixed at that moment, and I just knew that was God. And ever since that day, your girl has been devoted to God. I fasted for 2 weeks straight. I did a juice fast. No, the first 3 days I did a fast where I don't eat from 6 a.m. till 6 p.m. And I would just pray, read my Bible, ask God to speak to me, reveal the things to me. And after the 3 days that I did a 2 weeks juice and smoothie fast. Life-changing, literally life-changing. I never looked back at it. God, that's also another thing. I asked God to tell me what my calling was, what my purpose was, what am I here on this earth for? And I was, asking God, what is the will for my life? What is your will? What is your plan for me? And that's when, filming a YouTube video was. And at first I was like, me? YouTube video? Being on YouTube, speaking to people. I was like, God, no. I don't think you got the right person. Like, I'm not made for it. You guys, I'm very private. I'm very much to myself. Like, I don't like being in front of the camera. I don't like spotlights. Like, I rather be unbothered. Like, the things that I was praying for to God was like to work at places where I don't have to be on the front of the camera or like show myself, When God calls you to it, you cannot run from it. And I just embrace it, and I let God lead it. I was like, you know what, God, I'm gonna give it to you. I don't know how to speak. I don't know how to do this. You're the one who's gonna lead me, and I'm truly blessed and really, really excited for this new journey that God has me in. Always, always, always include God and bring God into everything and let Him lead you, and let go of your expectations, of your worldly desires, and God is gonna do an amazing thing when we let go and we surrender ourselves and as a sacrifice to Christ, He will show us the way and He will give us strength and we will be able to endure it. So thank you guys so much, and I hope you guys have a blessed day, whatever time zone, whatever place you are. And yeah, love you guys, but God loves you even more. Stay blessed and highly favored. Hope you like, comment, and subscribe. I can't believe I'm saying this. And God bless you guys. May the Lord, our God, Jesus Christ, our Savior, be with you, strengthen you, encourage you to anything that God calls you to do. And yeah, by the way, this is the first testimony. I'm going to be filming testimony of, there's going to be another testimony video, part 2, and it's based on my health and just lifestyle change that God has also revealed to me. So stay tuned for that. The song, I don't mean to flex. Woo! Locked in, locked in. Devil get impressed. Putting you guys on, okay? I don't know if you guys can hear it. I don't mean God, look, blah. Grace to grace. Hey, you see me at 5K. Devil get impressed around here. Ain't around here. But yeah. Oh, this is so random. John chapter 13, verse 7, Jesus replied, "You do not realize now what I'm doing, but later you will understand." And that is exactly how my life panned out. There's nothing that I would love to do than to glorify God, you know? And that's the reason why I'm doing this. If it was something else, I would be like, no. But because people need to know of God, and the enemy needs to be exposed, and he needs to lose a lot of people from his kingdom and bring them to God, for his glory, and to grow his kingdom, and to piss off the enemy. We can't let the devil be overpowering God's children. We can't do that. So it is our job as God's children to be the one to speak of God, to expose the enemy, to speak the goodness of God, and bring people to God, to light. There's a lot of people in darkness, and we are ought to do our job. You feel me? So this is a sacrificial walk that we're walking. It is a very heavy on sacrificing your own desires, your own ideas, and all these things, and it's to be walking with God in everything that is of God. And that is not easy. You know, that is not easy. People looking at you like you're crazy, like you're a Jesus freak. And I am. And you need to be on my side. You feel me? I don't know how this video is going to turn out, the audio. I prayed upon it, so I know God. I believe God, so it's going to come out how God wants to come out.